The morning of the 3rd of May 1999 dawned warm and humid across central Oklahoma. For Kara Weezer, a 6-year-old single mother in the small community of Bridge Creek, it began like any other day. She woke early to cook breakfast for her 6-year-old son, Jordan, before dropping him at daycare and heading to her job as a collection officer. Like many residents of this patchwork community of trailer homes and modest houses dotted across rolling pastureland, Kara had no idea that this Monday would become one of the most infamous days in American weather history. But as the day wore on, troubling signs were appearing high above the plains. Meteorologists at the Storm Prediction Center detected a powerful jet stream encroaching on the southern plains, the missing ingredient that could transform an ordinary severe weather setup into something catastrophic. By early afternoon, the atmosphere had become a powder keg. Instability skyrocketed, with CAPE values exceeding 5,000 joules per kilogram in southwestern Oklahoma. At 3:49 p.m., the SPC issued a rare high-risk outlook for much of the southern plains. In Oklahoma City, KWTV chief meteorologist Gary England was monitoring the developments with growing concern. When he stepped outside the station around 4 p.m., a wave of foreboding washed over him, the heat, the cloying humidity, the indefinable smell of the air. It brought him back to the 8th of June 1974 and the Drumright tornado outbreak that had killed 14 people. He gave the order that would mobilize the entire newsroom. We're going Priority 1. The station became a meteorological command center, fully devoted to warning viewers of the impending threat. The monster awakens. At 6:23 p.m. CDT, the tornado touched down in Grady County, roughly 2 miles south-southwest of the town of Amber. What began as a small funnel quickly intensified, growing into a massive wedge tornado that would carve a 3-8-mile path of destruction across central Oklahoma. The supercell thunderstorm that spawned this monster had been building since mid-afternoon. As it tracked northeast, it gorged itself on unstable air, growing into a towering mountain of a storm that stretched for miles. Within minutes of touching down, the tornado had intensified to F4 strength. By the time it reached Bridge Creek, it achieved the highest possible rating on the Fujita scale F5, with winds that would shatter all previous records. Bridge Creek. In Bridge Creek, the tornado was unlike anything ever recorded. A mobile Doppler radar operated by research meteorologist Josh Werman and his team measured winds of 321 miles per hour, the highest wind speed ever recorded on Earth. The tornado had grown to nearly a mile wide, a black, rain-wrapped behemoth that seemed to consume everything in its path. The destruction was apocalyptic. Homes were swept completely away, leaving only bare concrete slabs. In some areas, structural debris was granulated into tiny fragments. Trees were completely debarked, shrubs were stripped of every leaf and branch. A pickup truck was found mangled and wrapped around a telephone pole. In one location, an inch of asphalt was scoured from a road. Tom Tinneman, who lived in a mobile home in Bridge Creek with his 2 daughters, Tawny and Kylie, saw the warnings on television but had no storm shelter nearby. He took cover in a closet with his children. Then the last sensation I remember was kind of how you go over that first big hill of a roller coaster, he later recalled. The house first just started to tremble, and I felt the tie-downs break loose on one side of the trailer, and we started to roll over. It was like it picked the whole home up, threw it down, and threw us free of all the debris. His trailer was thrown approximately 100 yards. 12 people died in Bridge Creek alone, 9 of them in mobile homes. The fatalities were concentrated in the Willow Lake and Southern Hills subdivisions and Bridge Creek estates, where mobile homes were common. Over 39 people were injured in the area. The first tornado emergency. As the tornado continued its northeastward march, meteorologist David Andra at the National Weather Service office in Norman realized they were facing an unprecedented situation. A violent, mile-wide tornado was moving directly into some of the most densely populated areas of the Oklahoma City metropolitan area. At 6:57 p.m. CDT, NWS Norman issued the first-ever tornado emergency statement designed to convey the extraordinary danger in the strongest possible terms. Andra later explained that he wanted to paint the picture to residents that a rare and deadly tornado was imminent in the metro area. The message was stark and urgent. This was not an ordinary tornado warning. This was a life or death situation. A path of devastation. The tornado paralleled Interstate 44 as it crossed into McLean County, where it reached F4 intensity. Tragedy struck when a woman attempting to shelter under an overpass was blown out and killed by the channeling winds. Her 11-year-old son survived by clinging to the steel girders. This incident would later contribute to the debunking of the myth that highway overpasses are safe places to take shelter during tornadoes. In fact, they are among the most dangerous locations. By 7:10 p.m., the tornado had crossed the South Canadian River and entered the southern Oklahoma City limits, still at F5 strength. It continued its rampage through Moore, Del City, and Midwest City. The death and destruction mounted as the storm tore through neighborhoods, destroying 8,132 homes, 1,041 apartments, 260 businesses, 11 public buildings, and 7 churches. The Calloway family in Oklahoma City experienced the full fury of the storm. Glenda Calloway and her teenage son Brock took shelter in a fiberglass bathtub as the tornado tore their home apart piece by piece. "I remember we looked at each other. I remember hearing a really loud noise," Glenda later recalled. She woke up in the rubble beside her critically injured son. Brock had suffered a severe brain injury, a broken arm, and multiple abrasions. He was in an induced coma for weeks, followed by months of rehabilitation to relearn how to walk and talk. The aftermath. When the tornado finally dissipated at 7:48 p.m. just outside Midwest City, it had been on the ground for 1 hour and 25 minutes, an extraordinarily long lifespan for a tornado. The final toll was staggering: 36 direct fatalities, 5 indirect deaths, 580, 3 injuries, and $1 billion in damage, equivalent to approximately $1.8 billion in 2024 dollars. Search and rescue operations began immediately. President Bill Clinton signed a major disaster declaration the following day, unlocking $67.8 million in federal aid. The Oklahoma National Guard was deployed to assist with security and recovery efforts. In the days and weeks that followed, stories of survival and loss emerged. Children from Mid-Del schools shared their experiences in a book called Writing Up the Storm, using art and writing as therapy to process the trauma. One student, Katie Campbell, described the tornado's sound. "Some people say it sounded like a freight train overhead. I say it sounded just like a gigantic lion. I will never forget that sound." Just 2 streets down, the lion left nothing but rubble. A community rebuilds. The recovery was slow but determined. By 2004, 5 years after the disaster, Bridge Creek, a community that wasn't even on the map before the tornado, had become an incorporated township. New homes had risen from the rubble. Schools and businesses had been rebuilt. From a community standpoint, it was probably the greatest urban renewal project that ever occurred because we got rid of a lot of the old buildings that were here, said John Pfeiffer, a local high school principal. The Calloway family rebuilt on the same foundation in Oklahoma City, though Glenda later admitted it probably wasn't the best decision. They installed a storm shelter in the backyard. Brock Calloway, who survived with a severe brain injury, had small scars on his forehead and arm, and 2 replacement front teeth. He was no longer allowed to play contact sports, but he was alive, a testament to the thin line between survival and tragedy that so many Oklahomans had walked that day. Legacy and lessons. The 1,999 Bridge Creek Moore tornado left an indelible mark on weather science and public safety. The Doppler on wheels, Dow measurements, revolutionized scientists' understanding of tornado wind speeds and structure. The first ever tornado emergency declaration set a precedent for how authorities communicate extreme weather threats. The tragedy also exposed the dangers of seeking shelter under overpasses, a myth that had gained traction after a 1991 news broadcast. 2 fatalities during the 1999 tornado were attributed to this misconception, leading the National Weather Service to actively campaign against the practice. Perhaps most hauntingly, The event foreshadowed a tragedy to come. On the 20th of May 2013, another massive EF5 tornado would strike Moore again, following a path adjacent to the 1999 storm. 24 people would die, but improved warning systems, storm shelters, and public awareness meant that despite similar devastation, the death toll was lower. For the survivors, the memories remain vivid. As one Middale student wrote in Writing Up the Storm, "Even though more than a year has passed since that tragic day in May, I still remember it as if it were yesterday. I still worry every time there is a storm that another tornado may hit. I pray that I will never, ever have to experience anything so horrendous again."